Thank you everyone for coming to our inaugural Lanai Summer Series community event. So excited to have you. Now, many of you had not heard of Lanai, had not heard of me or Steve, so let's just start with, why did you come?
I came because Steve invited me.
Okay, all right. Steve is the best, okay?
Wow, that's not what he said, but we'll take that.
My interpretation. Chloe, why'd you come?
Because I want to check out what Lexi is up to.
Oh, good. Lexi is the best. Okay. All right. Before this becomes sort of a competitive popularity contest, which is definitely not what it's meant to be, Lanai is an AI empowerment platform. We ultimately want to empower humans to do the extraordinary. We're quite practically a system of record for large enterprises to organize generative AI information, to make it visible, to make it secure, to make it actionable. I'm the CEO and co-founder, and I was very proud to join Steve, who is the co-founder and really the point of origin for Lanai. You'll hear more. He's also our investor, a partner at Juxtapose. The observation that both Steve and I had, though, from different angles, is much of the discussion about generative artificial intelligence has been about the models. How big are the models? How fast are the models? And not coincidentally, it's a lot of the same dudes who built the first internet wave building the models. But the question is not how cool is the model. The model is a new fuel source. And how is that fuel going to become sustainable in everyday lives? And how is it going to empower livelihoods? And Lanai is about helping organizations that employ 30% of employees worldwide to find value in a sustainable, durable, inclusive way from generative AI. We wanted to host this series early in our startup life, and we are very, very startup, to manifest what we believe strongly in that we're not interested in building cool tech for cool tech's sake, though it is fun to build cool tech. We're interested in this alchemy between people and technology with respect to generative AI. And we've invited two incredible speakers to lead us on a journey tonight, talking about very specifically engineering the future of work with generative AI as the backdrop to an incredible revolution. So without further ado, let me introduce them, but they're going to do more justice to themselves. Leah McGowen-Hare is a computer scientist. You can come up while people can gaze at you. Leah is a computer scientist. She's the SVP of the Trailblazer community and the head of developer evangelism at Salesforce, which is just a small enterprise company. You may have heard of them. She has 20 years of experience in technology. She's mastered a bunch of roles: consultant, developer, manager, technical trainer. But what I love about Leah, and we met, 8 years ago, was this embodiment of how do you come to tech from alternative routes, and how do you help build technology that helps people. I value her brain. I love her energy. She was the first person I called when I wanted to do this series, and she said yes, so I'm so happy.
Thank you.
Leah can tell you all about what's happening in the developer ecosystem, and we'll talk about that tonight. My partner, Steve, co-founder of Lanai, as I mentioned, deep technologist with serious street cred in engineering amazing products, including VMware, which the code was built by him while he was a PhD, and he was the first CTO of VMware. He's been a partner at General Catalyst and now at Juxtapose. He serves on the board of a bunch of cool companies: Corelight, Security AI, SignalFX, several others. I am so excited and privileged to be partnering with him on this venture, and knowing that at least one person thinks he is the best. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. No, I do too.
I'll pay Steve later.
So my Oprah moment. To keep this interesting, because I hate events that are boring, we're going to have quizzes, intermittent, and they're cash prizes. So there you go.
Do we get to participate?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. So tell us the basics. I just did a very thin overview of your background. Tell us about how you come to tonight, Leah.
It all started back in as Lexi said, my background, I started my undergrad's computer science. I started in tech when there was no tech. Probably older than most y'all in here. There was no girls who code. There was no black girls code. There was no code nowhere, right? I started in early 90s with Anderson Consulting, which is now known as Accenture, which anybody knows what it stands for? Accent on the future. You're welcome. So you just learned something. So I started with Anderson Consulting out of the New York office, and I was building on mainframe technology. Yes, COBOL, CICS, JCL, hello, DevCred right there. So I was doing that, and I actually worked in the World Trade Tower for a while. I transferred from the New York office to the San Francisco, where Steve Shaheen was the managing partner of Accenture at the time. I worked in local and long distance, which was Pac Bell back then. They were trying to go into both each field. Now it's all a moot point. But all the system works we did then, just I guess it went up in flames. I worked in opening up their system so they could go into each industry. So a lot of development in the old mainframe. Then I moved over to PeopleSoft where I got to go on client server. I was like, oh my gosh, you could have in color. Like what? UI. Oh, this is awesome. So developed on, 3-tier architecture where we had client server, did all that. And then I decided I wanted to stop being a developer because it was so isolating. I became a technical trainer where I was able to marry technology and people, and it was a godsend. And I should have known because I came from, my father was a professor, my mother was a teacher. I basically became my parents in corporate America. And I've made peace with that. Thank you to my therapy and all of that. And then I was working for PeopleSoft, and it got the bear hug by Oracle. And then that's when I decided to leave and go back to school and get my master's in education and technology because I really enjoyed learning how people learn and the different ways people learn, especially in the space of technology. So I did that, and then I had my own company for a while. I was doing PeopleSoft implementations where I was converting flat file Tesseract systems onto a relational database system. And, it's not sexy doing data cleansing or data mapping, but it paid well. So I was able to graduate grad school with no debt. And I decided after that, I was more of a W-2 kind of gal than a 1099. So I went and joined Salesforce, and I became a technical instructor there. Had no aspirations of becoming an executive, never even saw myself in that space. I knew what I was good at. I knew my ministry. It was to teach people technology and to take technical concepts and make it digestible and understandable by the masses. That was my gift, and I was okay with that. And it wasn't until I had a mentor who was like, you have to see yourself in these other spaces. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I decided to take a leap of faith and tried a different role at Salesforce, in more strategic role where I was developing learning journeys on our free online platform called Trailhead for our engineers. Once you learn to say yes, you start saying yes to everything. And then one day you're like, oh my gosh, Toto, where are we? We're no longer in Kansas. I don't know how I ended up here. This is my career path. And then I met Lexi, and then she was like, come down here. And I'm like, sure. So just saying yes and staying open, beginner's mind, learning, been blown away by the AI journey, so much so that I went back to school. I'm enrolled now in a course online in Harvard called CS AI, where I am coding in Python. And I will say this, it's funny because people are like, oh, AI is going to take over the world. I said, let me tell you, AI is not taking over the world. Listen, AI can't even beat me in tic-tac-toe. But the problem is, I wrote the program where the AI is supposed to beat me in tic-tac-toe. So clearly it's my fault. But, so I'm learning.
That's amazing. I just learned a ton more than I even knew about Leah. So thank God you're here. Steve.
I don't want to go after that.
I mean, Tesseract, please.
If you asked me 30, 40 years ago if I would be sitting in Palo Alto getting involved with startups, I would have not said yes, that's for sure. I was born in Louisiana, I grew up in Texas, and like probably a lot of you, I was like kind of introverted and loved hacking on computers and found, for me, it was this TI-99 for a computer. Everyone talks about their first computer, but
Commodore PET.
So we got into that. And
Cassette players.
There you go.
Yeah.
We could divide into teams later if you want. But no, I just always loved finding out how things worked, and I really found a lot of enjoyment in that, as everyone else did. Went to school in Texas, and I was an art history major, then a chemistry major, and then did computer science on the side, and then decided to really get involved with it. And fortunately moved out just to Stanford to do graduate school, and just started hacking and tinkering and meeting a lot of amazing people who, if you're around this area anywhere, you learn that startups are just something you do. So that led me down the traditional path of joining a couple of startups, and some did well, some did terribly, kind of the usual story there. And spent most of my time at VMware, which ended up being a fairly transformational company for the data center. In that role, I was doing quite a bit of things, including being the CTO and the head of engineering, and that got me just really in. I first of all realized I was much better with people than with computers. Actually, I loved your story because quickly, my mom was a family therapist and my dad was a physicist. So I was like, that is the perfect background for engineering management, doing those two things. Anyway, I found out that I was definitely better at that than like the actual coding pieces. So after doing a lot of company work, I wanted to get involved with venture capital, where you get, I mean, say what you will, it has a lot of good and bad to it, but you get to see amazing people all day long, and they may be wrong, but they're always optimistic, which I think is something I really look for in people I hang out with. I enjoyed that for quite a bit. I worked with Pratik, who's over here, and actually Lexi a little bit. We overlapped at General Catalyst, but missed the hands-on piece, and so the opportunity to go somewhere new, which for me is called Juxtapose, and really start thinking about ideas and then finding the great team to work on them with. That's what really drew me there. And so we'll talk a little bit about kind of why we got so excited about this opportunity and why I got the opportunity to work with Lexi.
Cool. Okay, so we'll give 90-second answers, each of you, for the following questions. So
You see her laying down the law.
Warm up. What you said was really interesting, Leah. Like, is generative AI going to be this revolution, or is it going to be another sort of lemming-like moment that goes the way of Groupon or crypto or what have you? So I think we'll get into that, and I want to hear what you're seeing in the developer ecosystem. But first, our quiz question. I'm gonna show you that I have a graph, knowing that this audience may not trust me, a non-technical person, with this answer. When in the United States and when in China did AI surpass crypto as a Google search term? Do, 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 do. And there is a cash prize. No, you cannot check Cloud AI. No.
2022.
Dude, you do, that is my husband. He is disqualified. Someone else. Close. Anybody else? Okay, all right, I'm going to give this prize to the one person that answered that question. Here you go. You were wrong, but it was the right, it was the right year. In the US, it was June of 2022 when there were some headlines about DALL-E 2 and ChatGPT, because I told you the answer once. And China, actually, it never surpassed. Yeah. Crypto was always well under the search term. So with that, Leah, give us the scoop on the developer ecosystem and just your view on where is there staying power in trends that you're seeing, and what might be passing?
90 seconds. Oh, really quick, I'll talk really fast. So right now, one of the things that we're doing is we're taking generative AI and applying it in an enterprise way, and that's a whole different answer. But looking at how to do that in a trusted way is so very important. Like, you wouldn't put your customer data in ChatGPT, but yet you want to leverage the ability to have a prompt available inside an enterprise that scales for all agents per se, right? So what we're seeing is, what we're doing now is we're actually doing a free AI data tour where we're going around to top cities and we're running a full day where developers are coming in and learning our tools. And in the conversations I have with some of those developers, a lot of them are really excited to explore what this looks like. So there's a lot of excitement. There are some folks who are like still concerned about the safety. Mm-hmm. Right? Safety is also still a concern. That's more on like the Salesforce developer ecosystem. But now if you look at like developer development, there's so many LLMs out there that generate code. There's so much code generator. I mean, I'm sure you guys use, Copilot. What I'm seeing is There are so many generative coding tools, but what is not aligned are the same tools to test and check for security and ensuring the code is correct and generating unit tests. Like, that's not at the equal level of innovation that's happening. And we're seeing people are just flying with innovation to the point that when you talk about, hold on, are we looking at, is this non-biased? Are you ensuring this is ethical? That, in some folks' mind, slows down innovation. So they're like, listen, Jim over there is already 5 steps ahead. I got to keep up. And so people, it's like the wild, wild west out there. So I do think there's sticking power, but I think there's some bad behaviors we're picking up. And, like with training LLMs, you can't unscramble that egg, right? Once it's in there, trying to get stuff out. So there are tons of code generators out there, and there's tons of code being generated, but is it good code? No. Now people who aren't coders are like, oh, I could just generate code. No, you can't. That's not how it works, right? But we're seeing some of that too. So 90 seconds, there you go.
Okay, that was amazing.
Okay.
That was amazing.
Okay.
Steve, you talked to at least 100 customers when you had the idea for Lanai and got a perspective on what we talked about at the beginning of there is a lot of models. Are the models good? And you arrived at this idea of the company we're sitting in. Can you tell a little bit about what you think is on the mind of Fortune 1000 CEOs who actually own the budget on what they're going to invest in and what they're not?
Yeah, I think that it started with so a lot of us here have been around for a little while. It actually started by saying, hey, this feels kind of like the arrival of the cloud world and some of the early Salesforce. A lot of individuals like all of us are going out and using AI tools for whatever purpose. Usually it's not something that the company has sponsored or chosen. And so we kind of said, hey, that feels like the early days of, I don't know, the first time one of you brought Dropbox into your business or first time you might have been using something else. We started asking them, do you think AI is being used by any of your employees? And they'd say no. And then we'd show some tool that says everyone is using it, and that they'd say, oh, that's scary. So that was the original thesis on like, hey, we could at least help people get a hold of it. But I think as Lexi said, and what we've really changed to now is, sure, everyone's using it. Are they using it, and are they getting benefits out of it?
Right.
And so the real focus now is like, I'm kind of tired of being scared about AI. I'd like to lean into AI. And so that's where we kind of got the origin of the name, as well as really the ethos of what we're trying to do. So it quickly went from, hey, this is a security thing. We're kind of keep you from the scary things to, let's learn from each other. Let's use the best model when we can. Let's learn how to use the right tool for marketing, the right tool for finance. And as we'll talk about, that's really where we are now. So it's an empowerment platform so that individuals and companies can get the most out of AI, and they'll do it safely. But who cares about safe if you're not getting any benefit in the first place?
What I find amazing is building Lanai, and we're still very early, but is so different. How we approach every bit of building this business is different than how we built Gusto, where I was 5 years ago, or how we started building Google, certainly in the 2000s. Crystal ball time, it's 5 years from now. Salesforce is the same in what way and different in what way? Not from a what product did Salesforce create, but actually what it feels like to work at Salesforce.
I will say employees are definitely using AI tools there, and it's encouraged. It's encouraged. So I don't think there's anything stifling in that space. I think the innovation is encouraged. Like, I think our thing is we've grown so big. We were, when I started, was 5,000. Now we're at 70,000 employees, right? I see a lot changing internally with like ES or employees, HR. Some of the things that I'm hoping to see is even with helping onboard managers, and we're moving to this performance culture, and a lot of managers have to have these very difficult conversations. They're not used to doing that. Is there a way that we could use AI where they practice with an agent, right? And the agent provides feedback real time, like, hey, you might want to try it this way and this, because they're more open to do it that way than with another person, right? And be able to receive that feedback. This is my dream world. I don't know that this is anywhere on the horizon. I'm just making it up. But I would love to see using AI to help us be better managers in a company and be able to help grow leaders.
Great. And Steve, your prediction on it's 5 years, what is the same and what is different now that, if you believe, and I think you do,
I
that
believe-
generative AI is going to be big.
I think a lot of people think of AI as automating things and replacing jobs or getting rid of things that are already being done. I think if you turn your head around a little bit and just say it's a superpower, or it's like a little smart agent that's helping me out, hopefully it means all of us are spending less time on the crappy stuff and more time on the creative or the enjoyable things. I think it's really important what you said also with an engineer hat on. I think everyone copies and pastes code that they get spit out from somewhere, but I think if you start thinking about it, like you ask it, what's the coolest tool that I should use for payments, and can you give me a stub so I can incorporate it? Or I think you mentioned QA also. Like, I think that's an area where I think there's a lot of bad code in the world, and I think the idea that we could create artificial audiences that test out our software and everything could be really good. So I think the dream and the optimistic hat that I would wear is all engineers can be more productive and spend time on what humans are extra good at. The code that comes out is safer, better, faster.
Yes.
And that ultimately we're shipping more cooler products faster.
I'm excited to get some conversation about this after on where do others think the crystal ball is headed. Get some thoughts on how to lean into AI from a career perspective. What's the best way to do that? Taking yourself back to school.
Yes.
I find it fascinating that suddenly the hottest career, hardest person to find is the ML Ops data science with AI experience engineer. I know all four of you that are in this 5 square blocks. And of course, that's such an old world way of thinking about this, that you've got to hire someone with the role-related exact specifics for a ecosystem that's changing so quickly. But what would be your advice to folks that are trying to lean into this in a way that's durable, that helps propel their career?
There's so many learning tools out there. And I think I had this preconceived notion, because we had, Clara is one of the people who's out there talking all the time. I was like, oh, I went and met with her. I was like, oh, how do I get half of your knowledge? She's like, I'm figuring this out as I go. And I was like, shut the front door, really? Like, what? She's like, we're all learning this. So that kind of demystified it for me. And I was like, F it, I'm just gonna jump on and start learning like everybody else. Hence my tic-tac-toe that I can't, my AI is still not beating me. But I think it was just not being afraid, but changing that fear into curiosity and figuring out how to learn what it is. But I think it's even more important that we encourage everybody to do this, right, at some level. Otherwise, we're gonna continue to have, underrepresented minorities not being a part of the conversation, not being part of the test data, not being part of the end product, and once again, left aside. Not only encouraging yourself, but your community to come along in this journey. There are so many free learning paths out there. Get out there and just start playing with it. And then it demystifies. You're like, oh, I know how to do this. Like, just starting with ChatGPT. I'm very much for let the kids use it in school. I tell the teachers, you should assign a paper. Tell them to go use ChatGPT to write a paper, write that paper, come into class, computers down. Now let's read these papers, re-edit them. What do you see there? Like, the more you try to ban this, the more it's going to creep up. How do we incorporate it and talk about it as a tool? So I've used a ton of different features on ChatGPT. Like, I helped my son find facts about some research on some octopus. And he had to find out had to write a graph on an octopus. I was like, let me show you. So I showed him how to do all of this, right? These are tools. And if we don't, my kids are going to be at a disadvantage, because I'm telling you, there's other kids out there doing the same thing. So we cannot be fearful of it. I mean, to me, AI is like fire, right? It can keep you warm or it can burn your whole house down. What's it gonna be? Like, we have to know so we can navigate it. So just get in and take that first step. Try trailhead.com, Salesforce's free online learning platform, where you too can learn.
Terms and conditions. All right, Steve, anything you would add?
That was a pretty comprehensive answer. I love that one. I would just say that, like, I'm sure everyone has done the same thing where they've, like, shown something to a friend, like, hey, I created this picture from these words, or I just think it's really good to try and do that to people that aren't the ones you usually hang out with.
Yeah.
So I have a whole giant family in Louisiana that still thinks it's amazing that I can, like, draw a picture with words. And so I would just encourage you, make sure everyone gets to see things that you can create and get them excited.
Okay, quiz question number 2. Are you ready? How much venture capital funding has gone into AI? What was the number in 2023? And what is the number in Q1 of 2024?
More than
What?
For chief, you gotta get this.
Did you say?
100 billion?
100 million, okay. It was 50 billion.
Oh, I said billions.
Okay, all right. You're getting the practice. But I think like,
And the gift card is 100 billion.
it's just a small fraction of that amount. So in 2023, AI startups got $50 billion of funding, which is attributed largely to LLMs and image generators. In the first quarter, funding for AI startups went to $12.2 billion, a 4% increase. If I were an engineer starting my career, and I would like to die and come back as a software engineer or a designer, I would look and run very far from where that money has already saturated and think about then the following. Last quiz question. How many enterprises have adopted generative AI?
in percentage or
Chloe, can't wait to be ready to hire you here. It's exactly the right question. Percentage.
5%. No, it should be 1 or 2%.
100%, whether they know it or not.
Okay, all right. People who wrote books about AI are also disqualified. And honestly, I don't know this answer, but since I don't know you, I will give you.
And he said it with such
the prize.
conviction. He was like 1 to 2%.
So I know. According to, I think
Fair.
it's somewhere between 1 to 2 and 100%, whether you know it or not. IBM says it's 35%. But I think the point for me is, it is a change curve. And people in Silicon Valley mistake the coolness of the tech with what outside Silicon Valley, most people don't like change and they don't like technology. And the generation that's coming up into the workforce has actually not had that much technological change. They grew up, some of you are in this generation, with iPhones. You don't know what we're talking about when we say Commodore or Apple IIe. Like our generation has had to adopt our whole mental model and operating system 4 times. This generation has not. This is a big learning opportunity that has to be thought of responsibly and ethically if it's going to go well and better than the last 20 years of internet development. Questions from all of you? Yes, please introduce yourself and if you can share just a little bit about you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie. Thanks for being here. I'm the founder of Offboard. It is a newsletter app for job seekers who have been laid off. And the idea behind it is that we should be offboarding the way that we onboard.
Oh, love it.
You know, the upskilling going because we're all free agents and we should collect logos like Pokemon, in my opinion. And I'm working on an AI job matchmaker right now. So each week I'm featuring AI job tools. And so I'm really excited to hear how you stay so optimistic when in our space people are so negative and they're like, come to the dark side. And you're like, no, you just don't know yet. And so each week I have to like pump wind into people who are like, I just got laid off and it's so bad. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's other ways. And so how do you maintain that like curiosity that you're going somewhere that's working? We have lots of tools but they're unwilling to really, they're afraid that it's taking their job, but I'm like, you just need to learn how to use AI better, to upskill. Like, don't think it's, like maybe I can't help you with your resume, but there's a tool out there that can check your resume really quick and help you get past the ATS. And I find that I personally struggle with everyone saying, like, you know, the job market is so bad, doom, 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 and each week I have to pump optimism into it, even though when sometimes I'm like, am I the only one that feels optimistic about this? Even though the numbers and the data say we're okay, but
Yeah,
if it's
okay.
effective or not.
Okay, I think we've got that. Do you want to take that first?
Thank you.
Do you,
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm happy to do it. I think that the skepticism is exactly representative of what I'm talking about, which is, again, Silicon Valley is very unique. So you've got to really, if you're going to extrapolate this answer, it's not a generally average answer. Say that you know that the skepticism outside of Silicon Valley is very big when there's such skepticism and reticence in Silicon Valley, particularly among the major Magic 7 companies that have laid off jobs and have real now worry about in some cases, some of the technologies they've already created. This is not going back into a box. As Leah said, the fire is here. And I think what gets me excited is we have 20 years of lessons learned about the first internet age. And I really encourage and was happy to partner with ColorWave. What I know needs to happen is the people leading this generation of companies have got to be more representative and include more voices than the first generation of companies. And I'm optimistic that the funding is available. There is more funding than there are good deals. And the opportunities are available if you're willing to shift your mindset and push yourself into a very uncomfortable place for people who have been working for a long time into a beginner's mindset, like Leah said, and test and try new things. But I'd say that my bottom line is whether it's optimism or whether it's skepticism, if you want to be employed going forward, you have got to lean into this in your own personal way. Okay, cool. Questions? Other questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Sakura. I work at Equinix, which I'm sure Steve is familiar with. And it's a big data center, the biggest data center company in the world. We're slow to adopt AI, but I don't want to talk about Equinix. I actually wanted to talk about something Leah mentioned about kind of good managers, because I went to Better Up's conference this year. Better Up is a coaching platform, and they showed some really cool data at the conference where they're also incorporating AI in their platform to educate both individual contributors and management on how to have conversations, how to upskill, etc. But the really big point they made is based on their data in the last few years. They found that what's most important for a manager to be good is basically, in short, like that human kind of connection and being able to be like emotional, like the EQ of a manager. And I wanted to ask all of you, but specifically you, do you think AI is possible to kind of educate, maybe someone who may need a little more help on that front? Because I didn't really kind of get that. They focused some on AI. There was a lot of talk during that. But I think there was a lot of talk about how actually the one-on-one kind of conversations you have with another human being is actually going to get you to realize the things you need to become a better human, better manager, what you will.
I think it's a tool that can help if the tool is created in the right way. So to the point where I was saying before, like, let's say you have somebody who is practicing on their EQ and they want to be better. Listen, some folks just don't have it. They really don't need to be managers, but they're managers. I've seen these folks, and they're at top tier, and I'm just like, how in the heck? Like, and I'm thinking, and I'm questioning my things, okay. But I think what I see often is, like, if somebody really wants to become better at this, I truly believe if they practice, they might be more open and vulnerable in practicing and exchanging than they would with a peer or another person, or afraid that they might shame them. So I think if that person really wants to, that's a great mechanism for them to start practicing some of those use cases per se. And then they can be like, okay, I've been trained, I'm ready to go. And then, they're having a review with somebody like, oh, I should not say that because that will come across, it's a mechanism for practicing. So I think there's ways that it can be interpreted, as well as there's transcript readers that can say, reading emails like, before you send this, I'm flagging some things that could be seen as microaggressions, or you mentioned this word, what kind, the context, so you could have agents double checking those emails or statements. So I think that will build up a practice in their brain of, beginning to self-check, right? So I think it's a matter of how the tool is implemented and how it's used, but it absolutely could be from my perspective. I mean, some people need a lot of work.
People don't quit jobs; they quit managers. I think really interesting thing that would be interesting to talk to Better Up about. But if AI automates really core 1, 2, 3 level roles in engineering and customer experience and in sales, where it's being most talked about, how do you become a really good manager, and how do you become even a good wielder of what is the tool of AI? So I think that's a great question. I think we have time for one more, and then the final quiz. Yes.
Yeah. So I agree there's like a lot of initiatives. So I'm Saurabh, whether we have worked for Cisco WebEx right now in our innovation and research team with AI. So my question is, I agree that with your views about there's a lot of inertia outside Silicon Valley, and they kind of are veering away from what is happening with GenAI. What are your thoughts in terms of the core AI, and how is it going to affect the whole ecosystem inside in this country and outside in the whole world? Because GenAI, effectively to put it in context, is kind of stemming from 5 fundamentals that we can carve out, and then again there's going to be this core AI that like through sleeper agents or more paradigms through reinforcement learning, which would kind of again steamroll the new generations in terms of their appetite to learn and educate themselves. So like thoughts on that, and then thoughts on how this transition, like what we are doing or what this company is for, is going to better the next wave, kind of adopting the next wave for all of the end users.
Yeah, that's a heady question.
I know.
In 90 seconds, I'll
know.
I'll give at least my thought on where the kind of world probably looks, and I'm sure everyone here has a strong opinion. I think right now we're in this like weird Precambrian period where all this stuff is sprouting up. I think when things settle down a little bit, we're going to have a bunch of different models out there with a bunch of different strengths and weaknesses and a bunch of different sizes and a bunch of traits. And then a lot of what the world will be choosing the right model for the right use case. And those of you that watch the Apple launch, I'm kind of obsessed with how they're doing this. They're like, they look at your question, they send you on device for private stuff, they send you over here for something that's not here, and general stuff they send you to ChatGPT. I think that's what it'll look like for a lot of us. A lot of interesting models. Some are created by you, some are created by giant companies. Yeah. And you'll have a set of constraints over what you're after. I want the cheapest answer, I want the safest answer, I want the least biased answer, and it'll be up to us to create software that chooses the right one. But then if you think about just, I think the internet is the right analogy. There's this vast set of knowledge out there. You send some kind of question out there and you get an answer. I think it joins that greater set of things that are giving the answers. And anyway, I do think the challenge is how do we rate privacy, how do we rate bias, how do we rate performance, and choose the right one for the right question.
But I even think, to your point, bringing that into enterprise space, because it's one thing when you're asking questions, out ChatGPT, if it's not grounded in your own customer data, what they come back is not useful. But if I can ground that safely in my customer data at a way that scales, that's going to be super powerful to any enterprise. But able to do that, there's got to be a lot of security set up, zero retention when you're going out to whether it's an external LLM or whatever. So I think there's a lot of ways that we need to sort of explore setting this up. And the way we're doing it is kind of janky right now, right? But I think over the next years, we're going to figure out how to do this in a safe way. Because what is the real gold right now is data. Because there's data everywhere, but meaningful data, right? And that's the foundation to any good AI is data. And so making sure your data is meaningful in the context that you're prompting the questions. And secondly, making sure your data isn't full of toxicity, isn't full of bias, isn't gonna, blast your company in a way you don't want to be blasted. So you might want to check your data before you start sending that stuff externally. So I think it's really data is foundational as we go through all of this as well.
That is a absolute layup for our last question, which is relevant to a New Yorker cartoon that I saw, which is 2023, the year AI ate the internet. How much data has ChatGPT ingested, and how much data do they have left to ingest?
Oh.
We have none left.
None, a lot and none left. I really, truly think this answer is bullshit, but it says it's in the range of 570 to 800 gigabytes of text data. But honestly, who really knows? Gigabytes are small, I know. But the point is that that alone illustrates exactly what we're really talking about. Is that if we develop, if I would only disagree with you on one point, Leah, which is, it's not data is gold, it's the interpretation of the human who is using that data to know that that answer is BS, to sniff it out, to not persist it. And I hope tonight was both educational, a little entertaining. The purpose of this is to take down walls and create spaces where people can reflect and connect and nourish their humane, humanitarian-centered desire to lean into this technology in a responsible and ethical way. I want to thank, for the creation of tonight, the Lanai team. Please raise your hand if you're on Team Lanai. Especially Devereaux, who many of you met on the way in, and to Tiana and Marissa, who helped coordinate and invite folks. Many of you wondered why we invited you. You'll never know. It's very, very special. I also want to thank our incredible videographer and photography team here, 3Motion Creative, who have helped me for the last 10 years in this work. And if you're open to it, have some questions to ask all of you to see what was helpful and learn more. I also want to thank and give a little bit of spotlight to John, the executive director of Color Wave, which is an organization everybody should know about and is a co-sponsor for tonight.
Good evening, everybody. A quick note about what we do. Essentially, we're committed to helping more underrepresented talent get connected to venture-backed startups. I think Lexi shared a little bit in her comments that historically it's been challenging mostly because of network effects, where it's hard for these communities to get access to the cutting edge technology. And our organization strives to make those connections happen and get more underrepresented professionals in the companies that are going to change the world. So I'm glad you all are having this conversation. I see myself as an extension of our community to bring these opportunities to them. And I would welcome any opportunities to work with people, to hear about open source projects, just to get more exposure for those who we support in making that transition into the space of reality.
Thank you so much, John. We're so happy about the partnership with Color Wave. Talked to an incredible woman from Facebook who was really interested in coming into startup, but was having difficulty overcoming this catch-22. Well, that's amazing that you had Facebook experience from early days and you've had this insert credential, but you haven't had 0 to 1 experience, but you haven't had this specific ML ops experience. And I also empathize with a founder who's saying, well, we have only this money, the clock is ticking, every day we're spending money, we're not earning money, and I need this superpower magic unicorn who fits all of these boxes. But again, this is about something's got to give. Something's got to give. We've got to do this build in a different way. So we're now considering you part of the Lanai community. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, for taking a risk on someone like me. And thank you, Leah, for saying yes. And to all of you, stay, mix, mingle, eat, and be merry. We've got a little DJ set list. Thank you. Yeah, great.
Fun to listen. Great.
Thanks.
That was really nice to hear.
I know.